Hello, everyone. It's Nicole from HBCU 20x20, and we're extremely excited to kick off Black History Month with a conversation that will certainly change your life. Today, we'll be hosting the business behind the Bears. So the Chicago Bears is one of our partners. If you were tuned in last year, we hosted our Network to Network event with the Chicago Bears. Huge success in Chicago, but today we'll be hosting this panel discussion just to learn a little bit more about the different kinds of opportunities that are available. But most importantly, we'll hear from the professionals who currently work at the Chicago Bear. We'll take a dive into their own professional journey and learn a little bit more about how they help push the organization forward. I'd like to kick off our panel. We'll start with Crimson. I don't know if you were at our event in Chicago, but Crimson was with us, and we're so excited to have her here with us again today. So Crimson, if you can you tell us a little bit more about what you do at the Chicago Bear and potentially what's changed since we last saw you?
Yes, hello. So my name is Crimson Duckett. I am the Suite Service Coordinator here at the Chicago Bears. And my overall job is to really make sure that the suite partners that we have at the Chicago Bears are happy and excited to come to a game. As you all know, our field performance isn't actually where we would like for it to be. So really bringing the experience piece is really my job and duty. What has changed since last I was on the panel? Now I'm really focusing on the upcoming concerts for this summer. We have a possibility of 7 concerts that will be happening. So that is really my primary focus, is really organizing all of that for our suite partners and making sure that our suite partners have their suites for their concerts.
Thank you so much for that, Crimson. And hopefully, those who are watching, if you do or interested in attending an event, Crimson is the person to hit up. Next, we'd like to go to Elaena. Elaena, can you tell us a little bit more about what you also do at the Chicago Bears?
Yeah, so hi everyone, my name is Elaena Harris. I am Associate Counsel for the Chicago Bears, which is a fancy way of saying that I am the team's lawyer. So what I do is I represent the team managing any of our outside litigation, workers' compensation issues, internal legal education, such as how we defend our trademarks, how we go about negotiating agreements, and I'm also responsible for managing our business legal operations, which basically means that I review any contracts that the club enters into.
Now, that's an important job, protecting the organization. So thank you also for joining us for this conversation as well. Next, I'd like to go to Pooja. Pooja, can you share a little bit more about what you do at the Chicago Bears?
Sure, no problem. So my name is Pooja Van Dyke. I'm the Director of Digital Media at the Chicago Bears. And what that means is I basically oversee chicagobears.com and the official Chicago Bears app. So I basically oversee both the content plan and app utility. So my team consists of writers, digital developers, editors, and product coordinators.
Thank you so much for that. I know that our community is really focused, or a lot of people are interested in tech. So it sounds like the user experience is something that you really help to facilitate and move forward. So thank you for also participating today. And last but not least, we have Jordan. Jordan, can you tell us also about what you do with the Chicago Bears?
Definitely. I'm one of the suite sales managers here with the Bears. So my team and I handle all things premium hospitality here for the team. So that's everything essentially that happens in a suite on a Bears game day. Right now, we're focused more on finding our full season partners. Prices range anywhere from $20K per season all the way up to $400,000 plus. So some lengthy conversations about what kind of partnership or opportunities are available here, and we work hand in hand with Crimson's team to make sure that we are bringing the best possible experience to all of our clients as well.
Thank you so much for that as well. Because I have you on the screen, I'd like to ask you, our next question. How do you feel your educational experience not only shaped you and helped you in the real world, but prepared you for this current role that you're in?
It's a great question. For me, I went to school at University of Oregon. My major and minor, I don't know how too much they, I guess, put me on the path to this specific role, but I knew for sure that, just while being there, we had a great sports marketing program, a great sports business program. So that's where I focused on from a minor perspective. But as soon as school was over, as soon as football was over for me, as far as on the field was concerned, knew I was definitely intrigued by, as far as the background was concerned. All of these people don't show up to all of these games. All of these tickets don't get sold. All of these, concessions aren't set up and food and drinks are sold without any planning and without a lot of preparation. So, I had an opportunity to go from school to an internship. It was unpaid at Stanford. I don't even know if they still do those, but that was really my first kind of dive into the world of sports on the business side and more on managing all different kinds of sporting events. But then got my first opportunity in sales more so on the football side in arena football, which again, I don't even know if that exists anymore. But everything essentially led me, on the path here to the Bears. So and essentially went from arena football to the San Francisco 49ers, to the Los Angeles Rams, to the Chicago Bears. So it's been an interesting path, but extremely excited to be here right now, and can say with confidence the team I work for specifically at the moment is one of the best I've ever worked for.
Thank you so much for providing that insight. And I just have one quick question just to ask as I was listening to your story. It sounded as though you are a student athlete. And I know that a lot of students are also interested, those who play sports are interested in learning about how to navigate their way into an organization like the Chicago Bears, or you mentioned the LA Rams, my hometown. But I'd love just to learn a little bit more about how you found those internship opportunities that kind of put you on this trajectory to where you are currently.
Got you. So great questions. I grew up in the Bay Area. So Stanford was a quick ride up the road for me. So immediately jumped at the opportunity to just be a part of an extremely prestigious university first and foremost. So to be able to kind of, put that on a resume, I think really helped springboard everything that I've got going on right now. But, as a student athlete, I had some really fantastic opportunities to kind of, network and talk with different people about, really what came next after school, after football. And I think the best advice that I could give to anybody, whether you're playing sports or not, is to get out and make those connections as early as possible. I got a little bit of a slow start after really trying to see this football thing all the way through, and then kind of had to take a step back and be like, all right, what do I do now? So not necessarily having a full plan in place. A lot of these folks are still going to be extremely young, trying to figure out what they're still interested in. But, those things that you're interested in, as you're coming into those, final years of school, find some people that you're able to connect with that are connected to the school, family members, friends, whatever it may be, because, the more opportunities, the better once you're ready to go ahead and call it a day there at school and really dive into the real world here.
Thank you so much for providing that context. I think that you make a lot of great points about being young and maybe not necessarily knowing what the next step is, but being willing to take the step forward is the most important thing. So thank you so much for providing that insight. Next, I'd like to ask Elaena the same thing. How did your educational experience shape and prepare you to serve in such an important role with the Chicago Bears?
Yeah, so I think a common misconception about being a lawyer or going to law school is that it teaches you the law. Law school does not necessarily teach you the law. It teaches you how to think like a lawyer. So law school has prepared me to think like a lawyer in this very business-minded environment. But my previous job, I worked at a law firm for almost 5 years. That experience taught me how to translate legalese into business objectives. And that's really important because the majority of the people who work at the Chicago Bears do not have a JD, have not sat for the bar, and do not understand what terms like indemnification means, or what's the benefit of having certain provisions in an agreement. And so I bring that legal context to our business decisions to make sure that we are making the best decisions for the club in the short term and the long term.
Thank you so much for sharing that. But I also like to ask another question just to build off of what you shared. Because there are so few people who are trained to think like a lawyer within the organization or within the club, how is your voice added into the process? So I know that we also have students and those who may aspire to go on to law school. How did you make that transition from being at a law firm to a sports organization? And what has that been like for you?
Okay, great question. So I'll answer your first question first. So what does my voice, or how does my voice carry within the organization? So I'm in somewhat of an ivory tower. Mostly our business people come to us. So you all, our business people have a legal question, they submit a legal question or a contract into our contract review system, and then we review it. However, what I'm finding is that there needs to perhaps be a little bit more transparency and more of a relationship where I can be proactive and help people problem solve earlier rather than waiting on our business people to come to me. So the big thing with that is just building relationships, talking to people in the different departments to understand what they're doing so that we can be an earlier partner in their process. Now your second question, I forget what it was. Can you repeat the second question?
No, absolutely. My next question was just in regards to that transition from being at a law firm to a sports organization.
Right. So that is very different. Law firms, you have the luxury of having subject matter experts on virtually every legal topic. I worked at a top 40 law firm. So in the event that anyone had a legal question, the best way to leverage cost is that you send out a firm-wide email and say, hey, who is the subject matter expert on this issue? Give me the answer. At a sports organization, it's very different because I am now the resident subject matter expert on the law. And so one thing that I had to get really comfortable with is telling people I don't know. And that's okay, because my job isn't to know everything. My job is to help us figure it out. And so that transition from being like, I am the subject matter expert, I should immediately know the answer to this question, to giving myself the grace to work through and problem solve has probably been the biggest part of this transition. But I also think that it's kind of awoken some of my creativity, a lot more of my problem solving skills, and has really helped me get to know the other people in the organization better.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And, it seems like your experiences are so nuanced in a way where you get to arrive at the Chicago Bears in a different capacity. And I love that you also stated, it's okay not to know everything. And you being the person that people can come to figure it out. So thank you just for shedding that light and shedding that context and how it relates to your role. Next, I'd like to ask Pooja the same thing. Fan experience is so important. And one of the first things as a fan we tend to do is go on a website. How did you get to where you are? How do you figure out what works best for the fan base, for the Chicago Bears, and just for the organization in general?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for asking that. So yeah, there's a ton of opportunity on the digital platforms to tell our stories. And that's really what drives my core passion, is how do we best serve our fan? And in terms of how did I get here, I attended a big sports school as well. I attended the Ohio State University, sorry. And attending a Big Ten school and winning a college football national championship while I was in attendance there solidified what I loved about sports. It was always so much more to me than a team playing another team. It was about the teamwork, the grit, the grind, the tradition. I knew then that was a path I was very interested in. But unlike some of my colleagues here, for a young Indian girl who was not an athlete growing up, I knew I had my work cut out for me. And however, I will say it was like networking opportunities, much like this one, and communities like this that got me to where I am today. So when I was in school, I was involved in a group called SAJA, which was the South Asian Journalists of America. And they provided us panels much like this and opportunities to find mentors that look like me in the sports industry, and learning opportunities that cemented my passion in the world of sports. And it was actually at a SAJA conference is where I met a recruiter to my former employer. And, that recruiter I met through a South Asian community. She saw my passion and truly paved my path and got me where I am today. And I'm still in touch with her. She's my biggest cheering squad, and those relationships I really feel like you make at this stage can really impact your future. And, I encourage folks to not be shy and take every opportunity, because you'll just never know who you'll meet along the way.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And just to build off of that, for those who are watching, you miss all shots you don't take. I hear that a lot. But I do have just one random question. What was it like to be at the Horseshoe during a championship game? Like, if you could describe that, or if there's like one word that kind of captures how you felt.
Well, we weren't at the Horseshoe for the game. We were in Arizona. And I was lucky enough to be in attendance because as I was trying to break into the sports industry, I worked for the school newspaper and called The Lantern. And I was there with the opportunity to sort of help tell those stories at the national championship game. And to be a junior in college on the sidelines of a national championship winning team was totally surreal. It was pinch me moment. I still at this age, I'm not gonna, age myself here, but however many years later, still consider that a pinch me moment. And, that is definitely part of it, is to continuously remind yourself that we are lucky to be here. And that we get to be I'm so honored to sort of represent such amazing brands like the Chicago Bears as well. But I definitely was counting my lucky stars there.
That sounds amazing. Yeah, when you said that, I was like, I wonder what that felt like. So thank you so much just for sharing that. And then we'll go to Crimson. Crimson, if you can tell us also a little bit more about how your educational background led you to where you are and how you got here.
Absolutely. So I attended Tennessee State University, and I would say I majored in communications. Not even that major is really what prepared me. I was highly involved on campus. I joined a sorority. I also served as Miss Junior. So really having those social aspects is really what prepared me, is what I would say. It gave me a voice. So it showed me that I can talk to any and everyone. So from my undergraduate is really what prepared me in that regard. And then I went on to pursue and get my master's degree at Georgetown in public relations and corporate communications. So continuing to build my voice. And then that's what really gave me that confidence to say, hey, let's go into the sports industry. Like, you've always been interested in it. So what's the next steps that you can take to further get in? I applied for an internship with the Washington Wizards, got that internship, loved it. And then that's what really gave me that motivation and drive to say, hey, this is what you want to do, continue to go into it. I will say during my undergraduate time, I wasn't even aware of the business side of sports. So I would say if you're at a HBCU, join like the football team, like communications, learn the business side, figure out exactly what your niche is in undergraduate, because that'll take you on to a lot of different opportunities.
Thank you for sharing that. And I'd like just to ask one follow-up question. You attended an HBCU, then went on to Georgetown, which is considered a PWI. Can you talk a little bit more about that transition for you, what that was like? Because Nashville is completely different than Washington, D.C.
Yeah, so When I went to Nashville, again, HBCU, so you see everyone that looks just like you. It was a wonderful experience. However, growing up, I went to a Catholic high school, so I was like one of 10. So going from high school to HBCU to a PWI, it definitely was a transition. I would say, again, that voice that I found at HBCU though is what gave me that confidence to say this is going to be okay. Like literally, if you just network and talk to everybody, you will be all right in that transition. I would definitely say it was a little tough, but I definitely found my voice and talked to a lot of my different professors, and those are really the ones who gave me that opportunity. That's how I was able to find my internship with the Washington Wizards. So again, the transition was tough, but I was able to manage it because of the voice that I found at HBCU.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And, I think that as I've began to build my network and network with more professionals who attended HBCUs and then went on to PWIs, that tends to ring true that our HBCU experience really builds that confidence needed to go out into the real world. And I think that since you're on screen, I can move on to the next question and just ask you if that's okay. Just what's something you're proud of? It could be a project you worked on or something you've done professionally. Could you talk a little bit more about, what's something that made you go like, I really did that. Like that was all me.
I had that aha, I'm very proud of myself, is when I graduated from Georgetown. I graduated in 2020. So it was definitely a lot of hectic back and forth. That's COVID. So I was in class in person studying, and then COVID happened. So it was a lot of back and forth trying to figure out and navigate this new space with COVID. So I would definitely say me graduating with a master's degree from Georgetown is something I'm very, very proud of.
Congratulations for that, because I know that couldn't have been easy. Yeah, I can't even imagine.
It was not.
In school then.
It was not, definitely a challenge, but I made it through.
You did, you made it. I think I'd like to go to Jordan next. Jordan, can you talk about a moment in your professional career or something, a project that you worked on that you're most proud of?
Definitely. And don't mean to bounce around here, but I have to backtrack for 2 seconds to Pooja's story. You guys opened up some old wounds there, actually, as a University of Oregon alum and somebody that was sitting, I think, 200 level corner end zone. That game, incredible experience, fantastic atmosphere. Maybe felt like crying in the car on the way home, but that's neither here nor there. But now, as far as my aha moment, I would say my first job in the NFL working for the Niners, finally getting a chance to transition. We went from Candlestick to Levi Stadium, and seeing and being a part of that transition kind of from start to finish, I think was my aha moment, because I wasn't 100% sure whether the sports sales route was going to be necessarily where I wanted my career to go. But after seeing everything that went into it, being a part of everything from knocking on doors to get measures passed for the city council, to seeing the shovel go in the ground, to seeing the first game played, was something that I'll never forget. Somewhat addicted now, as a matter of fact, but had the opportunity to do that one and the one with the Rams, and maybe the one with the Bears too down the road. Who knows?
Thank you so much just for sharing that. I think that being able, like you said, to see that transition, to see almost kind of like a revamp or a rebrand or just a new energy brought, that does sound exciting. So thank you for sharing that. I'd like to go to Elaena next and just, what's something that you're most proud of as well?
I think one thing that I'm the most proud of is I had the opportunity to serve on a commission for police reform. So when I was working at a law firm, I was living in Indiana. My hometown is Fort Wayne, Indiana. And I think one thing about being a lawyer, a lot of people feel either the tug or the confinement of what a lot of people call golden handcuffs. So this choice between choosing a job where you're getting paid or a job where you feel like you can follow your passion, or jobs where you feel like you're making a social impact. And I want to encourage everyone on the call that you do not have to choose between all of those different things. You can use your network, you can use your spare time, you can use working at organizations like the Chicago Bears that has a philanthropic arm to work in all of those different facets so that you feel accomplished professionally, socially, spiritually, all of those different things. And so that experience, to me, it came at a time during 2020 after George Floyd, and the people in the community were really hurting. And I think because of my age, I was the youngest person on the commission. And me being the youngest person on the commission, me also being a lawyer and being able to understand the legal ramifications of some of the things that were happening and being able to kind of ask those questions, I think was really helpful. And I had a lot of people from the community reach out to me to say that they were really happy that someone who looked like them was able to advocate for them in a space where they didn't necessarily feel welcome. But I also had, public officials who said, I thought that you did it tactfully and gracefully, and that you had really difficult conversations with us, but broached them in a way that they were solution oriented. So again, I don't think that in order to speak truth to power, you have to scorch the earth. I don't think that in order to affect change, you have to be a monk and not make any money. And so I want to encourage everyone on the call to find your path, find what feeds those different aspects of your individuality.
I really appreciate that the context that you provided there. I think that, we tend to think that in order, like you said, to advocate for change, it has to be done one way. What I'd like to ask is just for you, did you find a lot of purpose and intention in being able to leverage what you have been training for as a profession to also lead into, hey, this is how we move our communities forward? What was that like for you? And did you find, again, that purpose or intention? Was it something that you didn't think would pop up in your professional career where you would have to leverage your skills in that way?
I did think that it was really helpful. And the reason why is because representation matters. And I know people talk about that, but to put it in a context of a legal framework, a lot of people do not have the experience of having their identity litigated. And I think that's really important. Or to feel like, it's one thing to feel other, but it's another thing to sit in a law school classroom and read a Dred Scott case to talk about who is a person, who is worthy of dignity and humility and respect. And so when you have that historical context of understanding the ramifications of people not being treated with dignity, and you're able to use that knowledge to have a conversation, I think that that's really powerful.
Indeed it is. And I love the history moment that we're also getting during this Black History Month panel discussion that we're having. So, thank you just also for providing that context and how you were able to take what you've learned in school to also advocate and, again, push us forward. Pooja, I'd like to also just ask you, what's something that you've been proud of as well?
Just wanted to say that was an amazing answer, Elaena. Thanks for sharing that. And one more touch back to Jordan. I have to age myself now. I was actually talking about the 2003 national championship with the Miami Hurricanes I was at, but for the record, I was also at the Oregon game as a fan that time. Sorry for the confusion, getting lost in all those national championships. In terms of what I'm most proud of, this is a really hard question for me. I'm actually relatively new here at the Chicago Bears. It's my first season. I'm 6 months in. But truly something I couldn't be more proud of is, within this short season, creating a culture on my team where we are always surrounded by creative, like-minded doers that are hardworking. We help each other, lift each other up on those tough days and rally on those really great days. And, I genuinely believe that if you are in a culture that inspires you, you can achieve anything that you put your mind to. In this, little over 6 month stint, I led a rockstar team that gave a major facelift to our digital platforms on the website and our app, and to really witness my team's passion to want to create a more fun, dynamic product for our fan while in season. I knew that was going to be a big take on, but we launched within 2 months, allowing our fans more opportunities for fan engagement, gamification, access to our content, pressers, providing contextually relevant content that spoke Chicago in timely manner. So I'm really, really proud of my team just like pouring their heart into a project that they were passionate about. And then overall, I would say like my life goal is to make my kids think I'm cool on a daily basis and have them brag about me to their friends at elementary school. Like that's literally top of the line goal for me there. So my prior employer was ESPN, and my kids were more amped about Disney owning ESPN and talked about Disney princesses and Mickey being my coworkers. But I leveled up when I joined the Bears in my kids' eyes. I've been promoted to quarterback of the football team. So as long as I'm still, in those conversations with my kids, I'm empowered to do more to deliver. But truly, it's really about family support for me and my number one fans being my guiding light and letting me know that, in my way, that this is impactful work that drives creativity in a positive manner. So that's really it for me.
Thank you so much just for shedding light on that. I know that I have seen the new site. So congratulations and kudos to you and your team for making that possible, but then also to being the quarterback in your children's eyes. That's really amazing, honestly. And you mentioned the importance of support. And since I have you on screen, I'd like to move into our next question. I love how this is all flowing, by the way. But I'd like to know, do you feel supported as a professional by the Chicago Bears to grow? And I know that this is you're getting through your first season, but so far to date, do you feel supported?
Oh, absolutely. To be totally clear, I would not have joined this organization if there wasn't just a clear, powerful line of support that the Bears provide. And as it relates to diversity and inclusion and being a female in sports, they're top of the line and making sure that there's opportunity available and that representation is shown. I'm not sure everyone has heard, but, we just hired Kevin Warren, who is our first Black president at the Chicago Bears. And to quote something that I read about him, he's about to come into our hallways, banging pots and pans, waking up every sleepy corner. And I couldn't be more excited to be part of this movement with the Bears. We have an incredible DE&I team that's part of every single conversation we have surrounding content. And actually, more than the content that we put out, they're part of every interview process as it relates to bringing in any employee from bottom to top, that makes sure that we're thinking about diversity of thought and representation in every decision that we make. And, there are definitely strong efforts there, and I'm continuously impressed and proud of.
Thank you so much, just for sharing that as well. I think that we got the news last week from Kristen from the Chicago Bears about the new president. So we're excited just to hear that you will continue to receive that support. So thank you for shedding light on that. I'd like to move to Crimson next and ask the same question. Do you feel supported as a professional to grow at the Chicago Bears?
Yes, I absolutely feel supported as a professional to grow as within the organization. I've been with the organization for 2 seasons. I'll be going into my 3rd this year. And when I first joined the organization, you could definitely see that the transition to really encourage diversity and inclusion was happening. I was really excited to join an organization who cared about diversity and inclusion. The team is absolutely amazing. Tanisha and Mallory, they really push the agenda within this organization to make sure that all needs are met when it comes to that. And to touch on what Pooja said, I mean, we just hired a Black president, Kevin Warren. He's one of 5 within the NFL. So we are already doing the changes that need to be made to make diversity and inclusion top of mind. So I would definitely say I feel supported. Throughout my time with the season, with the Bears, I've taken on more responsibility within my role. So I've already been able to see the growth that I've made within this organization.
Thank you so much. Also, I think that that's important also to note that you're in a position where you can continue to grow within your position, which will ultimately lead to, other positions as well. So we're excited just to see your trajectory within the organization as well. I'd like to ask Jordan next. Jordan, do you feel supported as a professional at the Chicago Bears as well?
I do. And to Crimson's point as well, I think we've all seen a great deal of change, which, for a team that's been around for 100+ years, while I think it's necessary and certainly warranted, I think from the outside looking in, you can even see that it's not necessarily the easiest thing to do. I've been places where they didn't necessarily put a whole lot of action behind their words. So in going into some of these situations, there's just naturally a little bit of speculation. But over the 3 years I've been here with the Bears, I've seen real action behind those words. And I've seen, a more diverse group of people every single all-staff meeting that I walk into, which certainly makes me feel good as a Black man walking into all of these situations and being in multiple rooms where I was one of very few. So very interested to see kind of where things go from here moving forward. But just from a leadership perspective, I think the Bears have really, kind of putting their money where their mouth is as far as this is the change we want to see. And we're going to go ahead and put some real action behind this as well. So very interested and very excited to see what the future of this organization looks like.
Thank you for also sharing that. All right, Elaena, we'd like to pose the same question for you as well. Do you feel supported as a professional to grow at the Chicago Bears? And I know that earlier you spoke a little bit more about how going from a person who focuses specifically on one subject matter to a person who kind of focuses on all of them. How do you feel supported in your role in your professional capacity?
Yeah, I do. So I have been with the club for 7 months now, so I'm very green. However, coming into the organization, I feel like my boss gave me or has shown that he trusts me and is giving me responsibility, allowing me to kind of quarterback certain issues. 1, because he's busy. 2, because I think he trusts me and I'm earning his trust. So that's really important. And one thing that Jordan touched on that I kind of want to circle back to, as far as people being championed and that type of thing and what it means to have Black leaders. Cannot reiterate that enough. Some of the most important mentors in my life have been Black men. And so I'm really excited to see Kevin join the organization. Another point that I want to make is that almost every job that I've had in sports, I worked for the athletic compliance department at Indiana University. I worked at USA Track and Field. I now work here, but almost every job that I've had in sports has been given to me by a white man. And this may not be the conversation for you all. This is more so a conversation to have with white men, but I want to encourage you all that those are relationships that you're probably going to have to develop in order to work in this space. Do not be afraid to develop those, especially when you have identified people who are champions. The white men that I have worked for have been champions of Black women. And not only that, but I kind of forced them to be, because I created a pipeline for other Black people and largely other Black women. So I got a job at USA Track and Field. After I got that job, 5 other Black women got that job. And so make sure that not only are you expecting for the organization to develop you, but that once you get in a position where you can help develop other people, you are helping pull other people as you climb.
Thank you so much for sharing that. You know, I think that at HBCU 20x20, we talk a lot about the importance of building your network, ensuring that you understand that you have sponsors, that you have mentors, that you really put yourself in a position where people are able to help elevate, and as you said, help you lift as you climb. So I really appreciate, you know, you providing that context, because a huge part of professional growth is being able to identify those who can help you move forward. So thank you so much for that. I'd like to move to my next question, and because you're here already, and you know, I think that we've learned a lot from you. Why is it important for the Chicago Bears to tackle diversity and inclusion? Why is it important to have a Black president lead the club?
It's important because it's who we are. It's the community that we're in. It's the product that we have. I mean, the majority of the men on the team are young Black men. And so I think that as an organization, we would be remiss if part of our mission was not advancing social outcomes for young Black men. But as a new person to Chicago, Chicago is so incredibly diverse, and we are in a really unique position that we have this awesome job, but it comes with so much social responsibility. There are a lot of issues in the city of Chicago, whether it be gun violence, whether it be homelessness, whether it be the school to prison pipeline and issues like that. And so not only is being a part of this community, us creating the best product to represent the community well, but it's also being a good steward of the community's resources and saying that we do care about you. And as you were feeding into us, you were coming to our games, you were supporting us, you know, little kids walking around with Justin Fields jerseys. Like, we have a social responsibility in order to represent the people who represent us. So those are my thoughts.
No, thank you so much for sharing that. You know, I think that oftentimes we've seen in the past where organizations tend to stray away from the problems that in a way plague the communities that they're a part of. So, you know, I think that for me, it's refreshing to hear that the Chicago Bears are also very intentional about saying, well, we want to be a part of the solution. We recognize not only the social responsibility, but, you know, how this builds into the future. So thank you for sharing that. Next, I'll go to Pooja. Can you share a little bit more about why you believe, you know, diversity and inclusion is important at the Chicago Bears?
Yeah, no problem. You know, I'll piggyback a little bit off of what Elaena was saying, but in my specific role, there's a responsibility as well to make sure that our content that we are putting out and our digital platforms can reach and access every type of audience. We are an international brand and a small-ish organization. So we have, each of us play a role in this, how we deliver and empower our how we deliver content and how we empower our fans to stay connected and make sure that we are showing representation in everything that we put out. I have responsibility too here, like as a woman, an Indian woman in sports, a parent of a little girl and a little boy. I want to do my part to take that action to tell stories that both encompass data for your head and narrative for your heart, and providing more and more context behind the Chicago Bears brand. As I mentioned earlier, football can be boiled down to one team playing another team and one of those teams winning a game, but it's so much more than that. It's a powerful place to be. These athletes come from unique stories in different places. To provide that context, to really showcase what it means to be a team and be a team player are really, really important parts of who we are. And I feel like it's on our team and our responsibility of the content portion of the Chicago Bears to really tell those stories and amplify what's happening off the field and behind the scenes.
Thank you so much for that. Much to your point, what we see is what we believe. And I think that, the Chicago Bears has done an excellent job of, much to your point, sharing the stories, not just of those who play for the team, but those who have something to do or be a part of, even those who just watch, and come to the games and are excited. So, thank you so much for that. And as you stated, representation is important. Elaena said it, representation is important. So thank you for that. Next, I'd like to move to Crimson, and I'd like to ask you the same question. Just why is diversity and inclusion important to the organization?
I believe diversity and inclusion is important to the organization because opinions matter, right? So when you're trying to create an experience, you're trying to create an ad, you're trying, different elements of our business, to have a variety of opinions of people who come from multiple different backgrounds to contribute to that is very important. So we're in Chicago. We have a community that we're trying to give a voice, express and amplify. So having all those various opinions from people of different backgrounds, I believe is a huge contributor to what a successful ad or something that is successful within the Chicago Bears, which is being presented to the audience, makes it.
Thank you so much for that. I think that this is the third time I've heard just like how diverse Chicago is. What's been kind of like your experience in your role and kind of like facilitating that experience for those who come to the games?
So I'm not originally from Chicago. I'm from Columbus, Ohio. So living in Chicago for 2 years, I've seen it's very diverse, but it's also segregated. So the way that Chicago is mapped out, it's like, there's Little Italy, there's Chinatown, like everyone kind of stays in their specific areas. But when coming to a Chicago Bears game and creating that experience, you see people of all backgrounds. So that's what I would say is like very important for us. We know that our community is, when they come here, it's extremely diverse. It doesn't matter if you're in Little Italy, Chinatown, South Side, West Side, like everyone comes to a Chicago Bears game. However, in my role, since I'm the suites service coordinator, I work in the suite tower. So I work with Jordan, I'm sorry. And we make sure that our suite partners are very happy. So our suite partners are very diverse, and we have different people assigned to specific people to make sure that that experience that we're giving to those suite partners is elevated.
Thank you so much for that. And also kind of like that visual representation. I think that in my times I've been to Chicago, I kind of noticed there are different pockets and different areas of, just different communities. And it's nice to know that the game kind of becomes this place. I don't want to call it a melting pot, but a place where everyone feels they have a place to be together. So thank you, just for sharing that. And Jordan, I'd like to ask you, that same question, just why diversity is important. I know that you spoke a little bit about, President Warren coming in and being able to have like that visible representation, but what does it mean to the organization? And more so, what does it mean to the city?
I think from an organizational perspective, I think it means for us looking outside and understanding that we represent this entire city. not just a subset of people, not just those that can afford to spend money to even come to Bears games. It's fantastic to, come out on Sundays and hang out with everybody and, in the same spot and celebrate the games. But I just think from an NFL perspective, from a team perspective, there's a responsibility of the club out in the community as well. And I think every single person has touched on it. Representation matters. And I think the Bears have taken that very seriously, at least over the past handful of years. So I think, from the team side and really being a reflection of the entire city. And then, for the city itself, I can go back to when I first moved out here. I can't tell you how many people I've run into that told me that I was the first person that looked like me that they met that worked for the Bears or had some kind of affiliation with the Bears on the business side. So not even just representation at the highest levels of business, just being out in the community, representing the brand and showing every person that you interact with, no matter what background that they come from, that there's a path for you to get to where I'm at, where Crimson's at, where Elaena's at, where Pooja's at, if you're just willing to go down that. And not only that, people willing to help you go down that one as well. So I think that's what's maybe lost on a lot of folks is they see it, they see that it can be attained. But how do you get there, and who are the people that are going to help you kind of stay along that path to get to where you want to be?
Thank you so much for that. I think the most important of that is just the consistency and dedication, and much to your point, that network that you continue to build. So I have one last question, but for our viewers, for Black History Month, we do these giveaways. So the Chicago Bears has been around for 103 years. We'll give $103 to the first person who emails us and lets us know the court case that was mentioned in this webinar. So there was one court case that was mentioned, Black History Month, fact, something that's incredibly important. First person to email us will Cash App or Venmo you $103. But I want to, get into our last question and any final words from our panelists. You all can take it or respond as you feel fit, but what's the best piece of advice you've received in your professional career? And we'll leave this open for everyone.
I will say network, but nurture. So you definitely want to network and connect with as many people as possible, but you also need to remember to nurture those relationships that you've made. So people always say networking is the main key, meet as many people as possible, but in my experience, a lot of people forget to follow up and build the relationship. So the relationship is really what you're looking for. So continue to nurture those relationships that you have with those people that you've added to your network. So network, but nurture.
Thank you so much for that. That's important.
I can add to that. Mentorship, we've talked a lot about that today. It's so important, especially at this stage. Your mentors can be anybody, your parents, a writer, a coach, a colleague. The key is to stay inspired. And, it's important to find a mentor that really speaks to you and that you look up to. In my personal success, I was looking for somebody in the industry who was a diverse woman in leadership position, who also balanced home life and being a mom. And that type of mentorship inspired me. That probably won't be the same mentor that Jordan is looking for. So find somebody who speaks to you. And beyond mentorship, it's about finding stability within. I find myself at my most creative state when I'm surrounded by creative risk-taking types. People that are driven by passion is a force to be reckoned with. Delete those energy vampires out of your life. Nobody has time for that. Find your niche, become an expert in it, and always bring something to the table.
Thank you for that.
I could jump in here next. I would say best piece of advice, this sports world that we work in is extremely small. Your brand, your reputation is going to follow you wherever you go and allow you to continue to elevate within this space or potentially hold you back from reaching those goals that you maybe had originally set for yourself. So always be kind. Always remember that you are representing yourself. You are a brand no matter where you go. And always just think about different ways that you can bring value to whatever situation that you are getting yourself into.
Thank you so much for that. And that is incredibly important, recognizing that we are our best and our only brand. So, and I think last we have Elaena.
Yeah. So my piece of advice is to not wait for permission to lead. I think a lot of people think that in order to affect change, they have to have a seat at the table. However, I think if you affect change, you'll get a seat, or maybe you won't need one by the time you're done doing whatever you're doing. So don't ask for permission from people to lead. Don't think that you have to have a certain title in order to add value. Add value, be creative, and do what you can from where you are.
Thank you so much, just also for providing that context. I just want to take the time to thank each of you again, just for your wisdom, your advice, sharing your experience, your journey, and most importantly, sharing more about the Chicago Bears and why it's a great home. For those of you who are watching, be sure to visit chicagobears.com. Thank you, Pooja. And most importantly, just continue to go after your dreams. Any and everything is possible. That said, this concludes the business behind the Bears. Be sure if you're going to submit that response, get that response to us at info@hbcu 20x20.org. But other than that, we look forward to seeing you all next time. Thank you and bye.